On the night of January 19, 1953, approximately 44 million Americans sat down in front of their television sets to watch a fictional Cuban band leader and his red-haired wife have a baby. It was a Monday. The following morning, Dwight D. Eisenhower was inaugurated as the 34th President of the United States. His inauguration received less press coverage. That is the sentence that tells you what I Love Lucy was, not just to the people who watched it, but to the country itself. From October 15, 1951 to May 6, 1957, the show ran for 180 episodes on CBS and was the most watched program on American television for 4 of its 6 seasons. It invented the multi-camera sitcom format still in use today. It was the first show to be filmed before a live studio audience using the technique that all situation comedies still employ. It produced physical comedy sequences, the Candy Factory conveyor belt, the Vitamati V Gaiman commercial, the grape stomping in Italy that are studied in acting schools as examples of timing so precise they function as textbooks. Today, the show is syndicated in more than 80 countries. Not a single member of its original principal cast is still alive. This is where they all ended up. Number 1 is Lucille Ball, who played Lucy Ricardo and who was, without meaningful qualification, the most significant comedic performer in the history of American television. She was born Lucille Desiree Ball on August 6, 1911 in Jamestown, New York. Her father, Henry Ball, a telephone lineman, died of typhoid fever when she was 3 years old. Her mother, Desiree, remarried a man who did not welcome her children, and Lucille and her brother Fred were raised for a period by her maternal grandparents. She decided at age 14 to become an actress, dropped out of high school, and enrolled in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City. The school's initial assessment was that she had no talent and should go home. She did not go home. She spent the 1930s as a contract player at RKO, appearing in chorus lines and B pictures. Steady work and no stardom. She met Desi Arnaz in 1940 during the filming of Too Many Girls, and they eloped in November of that year, a decision that was described at the time as impulsive and proved to be the axis on which American television history would turn. Their marriage was, by both parties' later accounts, genuinely passionate and genuinely dysfunctional in equal measure, separated frequently by their individual careers, tested by Arnaz's infidelities, held together by a creative and personal bond that survived their legal divorce and persisted until his death. What most viewers never knew is the depth of Lucille Ball's business genius. When CBS approached her in 1950 about her own television series, she agreed only on the condition that her husband Desi Arnaz co-star, a condition the network initially rejected because they believed American audiences would not accept a Cuban man as the husband of an American woman. Ball and Arnaz funded the pilot themselves, filmed it, and took it to CBS executives as a completed product. The network relented. To retain full rights to the filmed episodes, they also negotiated to own the show's negative, a contractual decision that was considered eccentric at the time, and that made them rich beyond almost anything their contemporaries achieved, because they owned the syndication rights to a show that never stopped airing. She became in 1962 the first woman to run a major Hollywood production studio, when she bought out Arnaz's share of Desilu Productions and became its sole president. Under her leadership, Desilu produced Star Trek, Mission Impossible, and The Untouchables. She sold the company in 1967 for $17 million, making herself one of the wealthiest women in American entertainment. Her later television attempts were never what the earlier ones had been. Life with Lucy, her 4th series, was canceled after 8 episodes in 1986, but the trajectory of her career from B-picture chorus girl to studio executive remains one of the most extraordinary arcs in American entertainment history. In May 1988, Ball suffered a mild heart attack. She continued working and made her final public appearance at the Academy Awards on March 29, 1989, presenting alongside Bob Hope. She looked glamorous, she moved carefully, and the standing ovation she received was the kind given to someone an audience suspects they are seeing for the last time. Less than a month later, on April 18th, Ball was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with severe chest pain. A dissecting aortic aneurysm was diagnosed. Surgery was performed successfully. 8 days later, on April 26, 1989, she awoke with severe back pain and lost consciousness. A ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm, unrelated to the area that had been repaired, killed her at 5:47 in the morning. She was 77. Bulletins interrupted news programs across America within the hour. She was cremated, and her ashes were initially placed at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, beside her mother. In 2003, her daughter Lucie Arnaz had both her mother's and grandmother's ashes transferred to the Hunt Ball family plot at Lakeview Cemetery in Jamestown, New York, the city where Lucille Ball had been born, where her father and grandparents were buried, and which she had told Dick Cavett in an interview was a hell of a cemetery. The epitaph beneath her name reads, "You've come home." Red hearts are embedded in the path that leads visitors to her grave. She came home to the city that sent her away at 14, and she is there now, in the tree-shaded family plot, in the place that made her by refusing to keep her. Number 2 is Desi Arnaz, who played Lucy Ricardo, the Cuban bandleader with the Cuban accent, the man whose real-life marriage to his co-star made the show's premise possible, and whose real-life divorce ended it, and who was, behind every camera, the most important single force in the technical and commercial development of American television comedy. He was born Desidio Alberto Arnaz y Diacha III on March 2, 1917, in Santiago de Cuba, Cuba, the son of the mayor of Santiago and a congressman's daughter. His family lived in a mansion. His father was a powerful man. In 1933, the Cuban Revolution toppled the Machado government that had supported the Arnaz family. His father was jailed for 6 months. Their home was confiscated, and they fled to Miami with almost nothing. He was 16 years old. He cleaned bird cages for a living in Miami for a period. He joined the Saboni Septet, a Latin band. He formed his own band. He arrived in New York, played the Roxy Theater, became a recording act, and was hired by Hollywood within a few years of his arrival. He brought the conga line to American popular music. The conga is not Cuban. It was his invention as a commercial popular form, a piece of cultural fusion that spread from Miami nightclubs to ballrooms across the country in the late 1930s. He was, by every measure, a genuine musical innovator years before the first episode of I Love Lucy ever aired. What most viewers never fully understood is how completely Arnaz's technical and business mind shaped the show. It was Arnaz who insisted on filming I Love Lucy before a live studio audience using 3 cameras simultaneously, a technique that had never been applied to a scripted comedy before. It was Arnaz who hired cinematographer Carl Freund, an Oscar winner who had photographed Dracula and Metropolis, to design the lighting system for the show, a flat lighting approach that eliminated shadows and allowed the cameras to move freely, and that is still the standard for multi-camera sitcom production today. It was Arnaz who negotiated the deal that gave Desilu Productions ownership of the filmed episodes, and it was that ownership that made them both millionaires. He was coaching in the boardroom, the more strategically formidable of the two. Their marriage ended in divorce in 1960, on the day after filming the final episode of the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, the most perfectly timed ending in Hollywood history. He married Edith Mack Hirsch in 1963 and remained with her until her death from cancer in 1985. He retired to a ranch in Del Mar, a suburb of San Diego, where he raised thoroughbred horses and spent his later years in the quiet of a coastal California property he genuinely loved. His final conversation with Lucille Ball took place 2 days before his death, on what would have been their 46th wedding anniversary, November 30th, 1986. His daughter Lucy had to hold the phone to his ear because he was too weak to hold it himself. His last words to Ball were, "I love you too, honey. Good luck with your show." Desi Arnaz died on December 2, 1986, of lung cancer complications, at his home in Del Mar. He was 69. Lucy Arnaz held him as he died. His funeral was held at Solana Beach, California. Lucille Ball was there, gripping her second husband's hand, weeping, remembering him publicly as a great, great showman. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered at sea in front of his Baja California home. A plaque lies at the base of a local church there. The man who gave Lucy her stage, her company, and her format is somewhere in the Pacific, scattered where he always seemed most himself. Between countries, between identities, between the life he came from and the one he made. If these stories mean something to you, please subscribe. Every detail in this script was researched and verified. Your subscription is what keeps this channel going. Number 3 is Vivien Vance, who played Ethel Mertz, Lucy's best friend, accomplice, long-suffering voice of reason, and the most important supporting comedic performance in the history of American sitcom television, and who came to the role at a moment in her personal life when almost nothing was going right. She was born Vivian Roberta Jones on July 26, 1909, in Cherryvale, Kansas. She changed her stage name to Vivien Vance after moving to New York in the 1930s, built a substantial Broadway career including the original production of Let's Face It with Danny Kaye in 1941, and had been on the verge of a nervous breakdown, the result of an unhappy marriage and a grueling stage schedule, when director Mark Daniels brought Desi Arnaz and producer Jess Oppenheimer to see her perform in a La Jolla Playhouse production in the summer of 1951. They saw her and cast her immediately. She was 41 years old and had never worked in television. She became, in 1954, the first performer ever to win the Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress. What most viewers never knew is the depth of the personal unhappiness she carried through the show's entire run. She was married 4 times. Her second marriage, to actor Philip Ober, lasted through the entire run of I Love Lucy and was, by her later accounts in interviews, something approaching misery. Ober was controlling and dismissive of her work on the show. She was seeing a therapist throughout the production. The warmth and good humor she brought to Ethel Mertz, the character's tolerance for Lucy's schemes, her willingness to be dragged into situations she knew were going to end badly, her loyalty that survived every episode's catastrophe, was being produced by a woman who was fighting for her own stability at the same time. Her relationship with William Frawley, who played her husband Fred Mertz, was openly adversarial for the entire run. Frawley once described her appearance as a sack of doorknobs. She found his age, his drinking history, and his declining physical capabilities frustrating. Neither of them pretended the other was wrong. The chemistry that made their on-screen marriage so credibly combative was real animosity carefully channeled, one of the most accurate performances of a failed marriage in television comedy history, sustained by 2 people who genuinely could not stand each other. After I Love Lucy ended, Vance continued to appear alongside Ball in The Lucy Show from 1962 to 1965. She married her 4th husband, publisher John Dodds, in 1961, and that marriage gave her the domestic stability her earlier years had denied. She moved to Connecticut. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. She underwent treatment and appeared to recover. The cancer returned as a brain tumor. Vivien Vance died on August 17, 1979, at her home in Belvedere, California, of metastatic breast cancer. She was 70 years old. She is buried at Belvedere, Tiburon, California. In 1991, 12 years after her death, she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2012, she and William Frawley were inducted together into the Television Academy Hall of Fame, the 2 people who could not stand each other, honored together, in the institution that had given them both their most significant work. The symmetry would have pleased neither of them. Number 4 is William Frawley, who played Fred Mertz, the penny-pinching, grumbling, sardonic landlord who was the show's baseline comic realist, the man who always suspected the scheme was going to fail and was always right, and who came to the role because he picked up a phone and called Lucille Ball out of near desperation, knowing that at 64 years old in Hollywood, he was running out of chances. He was born William Clement Frawley on February 26, 1887, in Burlington, Iowa. By 1925, he was on Broadway. Through the 1930s and 1940s, he appeared in more than 100 films at a working actor's pace. He was the kind of performer studios called because they knew what they were going to get, steady and professional, and not requiring much direction. He was also a heavy drinker, a fact well enough known in the industry that CBS executives warned Desi Arnaz specifically about it when Arnaz proposed casting him. What most viewers never knew is how completely Frawley transformed under those conditions. Arnaz was direct with him, one instance of arriving drunk to work or being unable to perform, and he would be written out of the show. Frawley never missed a day for either reason. He mastered his lines after a single reading. He was, by Arnaz's own account in his memoir, one of the most professional actors he ever worked with. Whether the sobriety was strategy or genuine renewal of purpose, the result was the same. Fred Mertz became one of the most seen characters in American television history, and Frawley was Emmy nominated for the role 5 consecutive years. After I Love Lucy, Frawley joined the cast of My Three Sons in 1960, playing William Frawley the character more than William Frawley the actor, a gruff, warm underneath-it paterfamilias whose surface the audience had already learned to read. He continued with that show until his health made it impossible. On March 3, 1966, Frawley collapsed on the sidewalk of Hollywood Boulevard near Sunset following a performance. He died of a heart attack before the ambulance arrived. He was 79. Desi Arnaz placed an ad in trade publications in his honor. It said only, "Buenas noches, amigo." Arnaz served as a pallbearer at the funeral. Frawley is interred at San Fernando Mission Cemetery in Mission Hills, California. The man who made one phone call in 1951 that changed the course of his career spent the following 15 years proving that the gamble had been worth taking for everyone involved. They ended up in a Kansas hometown in the Pacific Ocean off Baja California, in a Jamestown cemetery with red hearts on the path, and in a California mission cemetery. William Frawley, the most professional reformed drinker in Hollywood, is in Mission Hills. Vivien Vance, who won the first Emmy ever given to a supporting actress and kept her private misery entirely out of the performance, is in Belvedere. Desi Arnaz, who invented the visual language that every sitcom since has used, is in the water off the coast of Mexico where he spent his retirement. And Lucille Ball, who left Jamestown at 14 and was told she had no talent, who built a studio and a format and a cultural institution out of that rejection, came back to Jamestown in 2003, to the family cemetery, to the city where it started. The show has never stopped airing. It is on right now in 80 countries, in languages the four people who made it never spoke, on screens they never imagined. Lucy Ricardo is still trying to get into the act. Ricky is still saying no. Fred and Ethel are still arguing about the rent. And the audience that first watched it in 1951 has been replaced by their grandchildren and great-grandchildren who find the same things funny for the same reasons, because the timing is still exactly right. I Love Lucy was never just a title. Desi Arnaz wrote that in a tribute to Lucille Ball shortly before he died. He meant all of it. If these stories meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me which member of this cast hit hardest. I read every reply.